And we are live. Good evening, everyone, in person and online. My name is Aisha, and I'm the social media manager here at Charis Books and More, which is the South's oldest independent feminist bookstore, and also of Charis Circle, which is our nonprofit programming arm. And tonight, we are so excited to be here with Venessa Vida Kelley as we celebrate When the Tides Held the Moon, which is a beautifully illustrated historical cozy fantasy. And folks are already leaving comments online, y'all. That's why I'm pausing. We have some yays. I love a chatty online audience. Alrighty, tonight Venessa will be in conversation with fellow author and beloved friend of Charis, Julian Winters, who is the author of the award-winning young adult novels Running with Lions, Right Where I Left You, How to Be Remy Cameron, The Summer of Everything, As You Walk On By, and Prince of the Palisades. You want to list a couple more? Well, actually, I do have one more. Which is his adult romance debut, I Think They Love You. A self-proclaimed comic book geek, Julian currently lives outside of Atlanta, where he can be found swooning over rom-coms or watching the only two sports he can follow, volleyball and soccer. Those are good ones.
Thank you.
And of course, our person of the hour, Venessa Vida Kelley, is a New Yorker writer, illustrator, and sequential artist. Their work focuses on magical realism, fantasy, and romance in a culturally diverse world and has been featured in Discovery Girls magazine, BuzzFeed, and in board games and activism campaigns for Edgardo Miranda Rodriguez, who's the creator of the La Boricua comic series. They live in Washington, D.C. with their spouse and two sons, one of whom can cook a, what did you call it? What was it? A reverse seared steak. And can be found online at vanessakelley.com. And before I pass the mic along to these incredible authors, I just wanted to go over two quick things. I wanted to remind the audience to leave questions, comments, and lots of love for our authors in the chat box if you're watching from online. And if you're watching in person, just keep them in your head. And we will have a short Q&A towards the end where you can voice all your love. And of course, buying your book from Charis directly supports our work and allows us to keep putting on these events. So if you want to purchase your copy of When the Tides Held the Moon, you can click that teal button right below your screen if you're online. If you're in person, Kira has copies up front that you can buy right here, right now, and also get signed after the event. All right, thank you. On to Julian.
I feel like the people at home really just want to reverse your state. I don't think for a recipe, right? That's fine. We'll save that for part 2 of this event. Hi. I can't believe this is actually happening. I'm so happy. This is so wild. I have been a fan of yours. I feel like we all have been a fan for a very, very long. Before we even knew that you were a writer, we have been enjoying the gorgeous, breathtaking artwork that you put online for years. And you other skill that I have, actually write really great books. Which, to be honest with you, as someone who can only write, I think it's a bit unfair of you to pop up on the scene and be like, here is something just as gorgeous as my artwork. Look at me shine. Like, I've been in this since 2018. I still can't draw me on a stick figure. Chill out.
You know what's funny is as was mentioned, I have two sons, and one of them is artistically inclined. And in the way that I was when I was a kid, like, I would do these like art competitions, like fifth grade art competition, right? So I sit there focusing on like minimal color palettes, slightly, monochrome, like, so seascape, there's a lonely woman walking down the beach or whatever, right? And of course it gets passed up for the Lisa Frank trace, like, like unicorn And he's in his sort of like, what do I do with that? You know? And I was like, honey, please don't do what I did, which was to put all my faith in grown-ups who didn't understand me and hide my creativity away for literal decades before I felt like I could share it with anybody. Yeah. And I was like, don't be like little me.
We've already gone deep. Talking about a book revolving water. That is honestly such a very real thing that I wish more adults told to young creative minds, is that don't hide away your talents, or don't let the commentary of others take away from them. I feel like that was the same with me in my writing, where I share it to like certain teachers, and they're like, "Oh, this is okay," and that one moment of them, kind of knocking you down a bit, can carry with you for such a long time. And I hid away, in the dark corners of the web with fan fiction.
Yes.
It's great. I love it.
I was trained in the School of GeoCities.
Thank you. I was just talking about them the other day, where I was like, oh yeah, my first fanfic was on GeoCities. They're like, what is GeoCities?
Let me tell you about the trenches.
Honestly, but to build your own website in order to showcase your talent.
Yeah.
Nowadays, AO3. We're not here to talk about AO3, so I'm always open for big reps. We're going to talk about this amazing book that I'm still not over. I read the book. When did I read it?
It was still, it had been in art, I guess, for like a month or something.
Yeah.
We got it, yeah.
Oh, so it's a long time ago. And it's still with me. Like, it still sits with me. There are certain scenes that I think about, the way that you threaded things together, a couple things showed, the beauty in the difficulties of existing in this world. Still hanging over. But for those who have not read the book yet, please tell us what the title of the book is about.
Okay, so the elevator pitch is about Benny Caldera in 1911. He is a Puerto Rican blacksmith, and he has migrated to New York on, I guess, the command of his dying aunt, and is commissioned to build this massive water enclosure for a proprietor in Coney Island, not realizing that he was about to be roped into kidnapping its intended inhabitant, a merman from the East River. And it's all about the cages that hold us and what it takes to break ourselves out and each other. And there's a found family of wonderful sideshow performers and lots of New York lore.
Yeah, besides it being just this wonderful tale, all the puns tonight.
Puns don't
win. So I love that too. But yeah, besides just that, it's this gorgeous, almost heartbreaking at times romance. You decided, let's just up the ante and really create this wonderful, very rich lore surrounding this story that draws from so many different things in life that we have to talk about. But first and foremost, can you tell us where the inspiration for the book came from? Because I read a little thing that I could not believe that. Is it true the inspiration came from this because one mermaid, you decided to join in the fun and do an illustration, and all of a sudden that unlocked this genius book idea?
Oh, so hilariously, it was because I had decided I wasn't going to participate in mermaid. all of the best things in my life happened after I decided, nah. But
always say no.
That's why, like, nowadays I know, like, I better not say never to anything, because as soon as I do, that's like the universe's commandment to like, thing I'm avoiding. But yeah, so I don't know how many of you know what mermaid is, but in case you all or people on the internet don't know, mermaid is a May-long event where it's typically cosplayers and illustrators and artists all just celebrating mer people, and like we just like get ourselves to our drawing boards and just have fun. But that year I was taking on a lot of commission work. I was like in limbo with my graphic novel, which is now finally coming out next year. And I was like, I don't know if I have time for this. I'm probably not going to be able to. And then, like, no sooner does that thought pop into my head than this image of a merman and his period dressed lover on two sides of viewing pane, sharing a kiss through the glass. And I was like, oh, I have questions. Like, how did this mer person get there? And, you know, why is this dude dressed like that? And so, you know, then I painted the entire thing. And nobody sees that one anymore. Because I had yet to, you know, really sort of let that story into my heart as something that would be about me. Yeah. But, you know, I was just so compelled by this idea of like the barriers that hold us apart, but also this idea of having two very visibly disparate beings on either side of like the glass, almost as if they're looking into a mirror and seeing who they really are. Mm-hmm. So we have Benny, who is a cultural hybrid. He's got a toe in his past and in his present as a Puerto Rican, as a New Yorker, as someone who is still trying to figure out whether he's allowed to be who he really is. And then he's on the other side of the glass of this person, this being who is bifurcated biologically, but for all other intents and purposes, is a completely integrated person. So it's just, you know, I was just intrigued by that dynamic.
I wish my stick figures talked to me like that.
I don't even know what to tell you. Like there are moments, especially with this book, where I was like, I was just tripping. Where I was just like, oh my gosh, like these people seem real in my like in ways that did not feel like it originated with me. If that makes any sense.
No, it totally makes sense. And when you read the book, you feel that. You generally feel like these are people who existed in a time of history. And as a reader, it's almost like this voyeuristic ability to watch the history unfold to see where we are today, kind of thing. Mm-hmm. And so it definitely felt that way in a way that I don't often feel when reading novels that maybe historical. It feels like, okay, this is a time period and this thing happened and now I go back to my life. But reading this, it felt like I was taking things away from it that felt like this is how we got to where we are now, and this is also why certain things still continue to exist because we haven't broken free from those caves. Too much talent inside you. All right, let's talk a little bit more about Ben. He is, one of my favorite narrators, just because I think Benny's so real. His thoughts, the way that he goes about things, the way his hesitancy about certain things, but also his confidence and sureness about other things. Where I'm just like, hey, you are walking a very dangerous path, and I'm going to go with you. He's such a great character. Can you tell us a little bit more about him? And also, I want to talk about one of the characteristics that you gave him, and kind of like the things that you just talked recently about around it. First, tell us about First, tell us all about Benny.
The thing about Benny is he's sort of the ultimate unreliable.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, set me up so many.
I mean, like, what what's been interesting about like some of the reception now that the book is out in the world and how people respond to Benny, there's often like a small little like group of people who are like very frustrated with Benny and the way he is so close to the right decision but then backslides a little bit. And one of the things that I tried hard with his characterization to illustrate, well, in words more than images, is just how entrenched those racialized constructs become and how powerless they render us in moments when otherwise, the obvious decision is like right before us. But because, the world has told you can't, you don't. And so you hesitate or try to work around it or do the codependent thing, whatever the case is. But that is an experience that's unique, I think, to people of color. Mm-hmm. And so there are some people out there who read, When the Tides Held the Moon, and I think this is at a captive romance when I'm like, no, there is only one chapter in this story, and it's the guy with the influence and the gun. Yeah. But Benny, what I tried to do was sort of like subliminally lay out the fact that he very much lives up to his namesake. He is intrinsically a very kind person and, seeks to give comfort to others because he knows what it's like to be. It does not feel like he's allowed to be. He is brown in Puerto Rico. At a time in New York, especially when like the acquisition of Puerto Rico was not garnering a whole lot of sympathy, So yeah, it was really just like constantly finding the tension between what he wishes he could do versus what he feels empowered to do, so that by the time we get to the end of the book and he finally has to confront the question of who he is and whatnot, what we get is like an ending without spoiling it that is like, no, he has always been this.
Yeah, I think what you said spoke to me the most about reading Benny as a character, because I didn't look at him in a way where it's like, oh gosh, he's frustrated. I look at him in a way where it's like, oh no, you are making choices that have been embedded in you, whether it is because the world is telling you you're not enough, or you're too much, or just from a safety standpoint.
Yeah.
Because just existing, even then, just existing as
was a threat to
yes, exactly, as a person of color, as someone who is, learning and discovering their queerness, everything about him is a threat to someone else.
Yeah.
And so, like, reading the story, that's why it's so hard for me, was because I know what that's like, to carry that weight constantly, where every decision is not just the straightforward answer. Mm-hmm. There are about 7 different paths you have to look at before making that decision.
Exactly. And the risks are like your life.
Yeah, exactly. So yeah, I loved him so much. Can you talk a bit about one of the things that you definitely explore in the book, and in some ways is a sort of a cage for him, is his asthma, and the way he looks at Rio with almost this envy of someone who just is able to breathe. Not only the fact that Rio can breathe underwater, but she breathes fine. And that is something to be jealous of. That's something to wish for. And then also, we talked about this recently online, the history behind that decision.
Yeah. Okay. So I am one of many Puerto Rican asthmatics in my family, and it's something that we never really sort of like sat with. It was just like a fact of life. Oh, we inherited it, like what all asthmatics just couldn't breathe. But then as I was like I don't even remember how I found this out, but I stumbled on these epigenetic studies about Puerto Rico as I was looking up, I think, the geography around the island, seeing, it is actually the tip of an underwater mountain. How many mer people could we hide in that? But what I found out was that epigeneticists believe that the fact that Puerto Rico has the highest rates per capita of asthma in the world is because this island has been repeatedly occupied, multiple genocides, and that has now written itself in our DNA as the inability to breathe. And if you explore Eastern philosophy and medicine, like there's also a tie there between respiratory issues and grief. And I was like, oh God. All of a sudden, the last several hundred years of my lineage, wherever that, starts out, makes sense. And so Benny being in many ways like the poster child of colonialism, it just made sense for him to be struggling with that. And as I was learning about like the subculture of mermaiding and like underwater performers and whatnot, what I found fascinating was that these were all people who had mastered their breath. Mm-hmm. So like if you fall down the rabbit hole, and if you haven't, I recommend it. Because it's an incredible world. Like these people like really formed the basis of this new mermaid lore that I created for Tides. And so when they train to be underwater performers, a lot of them, like, they will go on these retreats where they just have to learn to be just completely zen in the water, because the further you go down, and I've tried this myself, I have 3 tails. That's where my advance went. But like, the deeper you go into the water, right, you're feeling increased like pressure around your entire body. So you're feeling the weight bear in on your chest, it's on your ears, it's like on your nose, like the mammalian instinct to panic is real. And so the first thing you need to figure out is how to just like calm the hell down. Mm-hmm. But then once they have, through practice and training and whatnot, like these are people who can stay minutes and minutes at a time underwater doing like really athletic stuff. And they're like, they'll occasionally like put videos of themselves like they're in these beautiful lagoons and whatnot. And they're like, hold your breath with me. And they just dive under and you're like, oh damn, I'm done. And so I just love this idea of like, in order to be at peace in the water, you have to be the master of your breath. And so that is what I made real, a master of the breath.
I love that. I honestly do love that so much. Tell us more about Rio, who, gosh, from the beginning, you weren't kind to me as a reader because Rio's story just everything starts so traumatic. And everything. Oh yeah, that's right.
To see, I'm like, great.
There are moments that are honestly so beautiful, and I could just sit with them for a moment. But that's not how you started it with Rio. And but it is such it tells such an important tale, I think. It tells such an important story of, what that is like for, particular marginalized groups where you are snatched away from the comforts that you have, and where you are expected to perform in a certain way, you are expected to be in a certain way, respond in a certain way, and share things about your life and your culture that weren't meant to be shared for everyone. They were meant to exist within your community. And that's what I love so much about Rio, is that he fights so hard to hold on to who he is and not give that up, even in the face of, a gun, or in the face of falling in love with someone he's not certain he should fall for. So tell us a bit more about Rio and just creating that whole other character that also felt like someone who was, I mean, quite literally trying to get out of the cage, but also, you know, what it means to exist in that cage.
Right. So, you know, when I was talking with my editor about Rio, because the original draft of the book was very Benny-centric. And we spent a lot of time with Rio. We got to hear Rio's voice, but it was not from Rio's POV.
Right.
And so, you know, in subsequent drafts, we were now reforming some of these scenes to be from, you know, from Rio's perspective. And what did that mean? And like, what was his worldview? And a lot of it was, I think, based off of some of the, like, my own sort of spiritual mentors in my life, who, despite going through some of the most atrocious things, still found those sparks in other people to, like, spur on, like, compassionate action, if that makes any sense. Like, so that even when the world was being cruel, they were still capable of finding the goodness in it, and, like, not letting it make them jaded or, you know, too hard. And that was a hard line to sort of find for Rio because of the trauma of being, like, having his mother killed and, you know, being viciously kidnapped from the river and all like that. But again, he also has his own sort of, like, past encounter that has sort of filled him with regret.
Mm-hmm.
I'm trying to figure out how to thread this needle without being, you know, too spoilery, but his culture is very much, has been conditioned over time to be like, let humans to their own devices, they will be their own doing. And we are not to get tangled in that mess. But then he witnesses something really atrocious that his people who tout this philosophy of being one and being connected in the water, and here we're all of these humans dying and just watching. So he has his own sort of, like, conflicts about what he's been taught versus what he observes, and specifically what he observes in Benny, which seems to completely go against what he's always been warned about. So I think what makes Rio stand out as a character is that despite everything, and despite all of his wisdom, he has maintained his innocence. He hasn't been ruined by his encounters with humanity.
Yeah. And it's so wonderful to kind of see him throughout the story let down those guards, and kind of want to take Benny into, you know, showing him another, because of Benny's compassion, wanting to show him the same kind of compassion. I just, any moment they were in the water together, that's why it's cozy, because it's really wonderful. Even someone who can't swim, I'm telling you, you'll just find so much comfort of seeing these two in the water. It's wonderful.
Just fling yourself into the ocean.
Please. And even if you don't know how to swim, please read all the rules first. Let's talk about the setting, because it was its own character in this novel, and I love that so much. I love that, you know, growing up, I grew up in upstate New York, heard about Coney Island, never went to Coney Island, never really immersed myself in that, you know, culture around everything around that. But you transported me there to this other time, this other world of you know, where the world was magic. Just the sights of what's happening around and these things that had never happened before. It's so unbelievable. So talk about the research that you put into this. And no, it's very personal to you.
Oh, yeah. So, you know, I grew up in New York, and my dad and I would go to Coney Island every summer, and on the off season as well, just because he had anchoring for, you know, hot dogs.
Very relatable.
So we, you know, like, succumb to New York traffic just for, you know, the 6-inch dog. But you know, you go through all that, you're not paying attention. Like it's part of the scenery of your childhood, and you know, it wasn't until the idea for the story began to take shape that I was like, it needs to be in Coney Island. I feel like I don't know enough. So all of the research happened during lockdown, which was its own sort of like obstacle. All the museums were closed, like all the main thoroughfares were shut down, and so I began just by reaching out to museum curators. My father-in-law was like, you know where you should start? You should go to the like ring up the Tenement Museum. So I started with them. We had like a 2-hour Zoom call, and they like fleshed out all of the immigrant dynamics, the stories of just like multiple ethnicities being thrown into a closed space together, and just like didn't matter that they spoke different languages. After a while, nobody asked for translations because there was an unspoken communication now between these different groups. And from that conversation, they were like, so if we're talking about Puerto Ricans in New York, you need to talk to Virginia Sanchez Carot, who was the professor emeritus of Puerto Rican studies at CUNY Brooklyn. And at the time, she was doing like consultation work with Steven Spielberg on West Side Story. And I was like, I don't know how to get on my knees. Call to say thank you. But then she said, you're talking about Coney Island and sideshows. The Coney Island Circus sideshow is still in operation. They're closed because of COVID, obviously. They run a museum. Talk to them. So I connected with Adam Reelman, who is not only the museum curator and the art director of the current sideshow that's in operation there, but he's also a sword swallower. And through him, I got like, he shared stories and anecdotes, and the entire maxim of with it, for it, never against it was a command from him. He's like, if you include nothing else about us in this book, you have to say that. The Carney Creed is like, because it is the phrase that binds all of us weirdos in this community. Because for hundreds of years, the alternative when you are marginalized or disabled or any kind of other is to be institutionalized or thrown in jail or brutalized. And so when society does not protect you, we protect each other. And I was like, yes, sir.
I did not know that was an actual thing. I love that.
Yeah. And so like it was through all of these incredibly generous and knowledgeable people that I was able to reconstruct a time and place that I had never been. And I remember going back to, I'm going to try not to get choked up, but I remember going back to Coney Island this past summer because I wanted to, like, lockdown was done and I could go up there and like deliver my gratitude in person to Adam and everybody. And I managed to find parking on Surf Avenue, which was like, I'm still in New York. But I had like just like head to toe tingles standing at the intersection of Surf and 8th and just realizing, I was like, oh my God, this is the path that Benny takes to freedom. And just feeling the confluence of, like 100+ years existing at the same time. Because there are, 100-year-old buildings that are still there. And like, if you go on Mermaid Avenue, it's not named for any other reason than that there are mermaids built into the actual architecture, like gargoyles. So like you look up, you'll see these buildings with like, weirdly, it's like a mermaid like holding her boobs. I don't know why. But anyway, yeah, and just like feeling the ghosts of millions of immigrants that would pass through there, because for better or for worse, like there is a dark history to the parks, and I try to hint at it in a number of different ways. What happens to Rio is not unlike what happened to the elephant for which Dumbo was inspired. But anyway, just trying to be faithful to the history, playing up the fact that it was a sort of like getaway where all of the gender and societal structures could melt away and people were fully integrated. Like we're talking like in the midst of segregation, Coney Island was not segregated. Everyone rode the rides together. Everyone fell into each other's laps. Like it was just, you left all of that stuff at the gates. So yeah, I mean, I fell in love with that entire area all over again.
I was not prepared to go on that journey.
Well, you asked.
I know. I cry easily, so let's think about other things. Gosh. Okay, so the beauty of found family is such a wonderful part of this story. Honestly, the whole sideshow family, there was some in the beginning I was like, I'm not gonna like you by the end, I can tell. And by the end, I wanted nothing but for all of them to live their best lives. I wanted so much for all of them. And you talk about that exploration, especially the importance, I feel like, of found family. It's not only, we often talk about it's always like in queer stories and stuff like that, but I feel like what you were saying earlier, it stands true to that found family exists in all marginalized communities, and everyone who's othered has that found family sense to them, where it's like, I find people who allow me to be me, and it is the most important thing I have. So tell us about that found family structure in this novel, but also I need to know, did you have any favorites, or anyone where you're just like, shut up, this is not your story, it's about Rio and Betty?
Oh gosh, okay. All right, so something that needs to be said is that every single person in the menagerie is based on at least one or two acts that existed. So, like the favorite I like to bring up is Vera, the fire breather.
Yes.
So she is loosely based on an act called the was it? The word is escaping me. See what perimenopause does. The hermaphrodite. Yeah. So this was an act in which a person would go on stage with their garments sort of split down the middle, and you'd have very feminine garments on this side with long hair that's been like curled up, whatever, and there's makeup on this side, and then on the other side, they're slipped back, short menswear. And when you dig into the history of this individual, they were in a lavender marriage. There were lots of, how history tends to sort of like straight wash things. But the signs were there that this was a non-binary person who was trying to express themselves in a world that did not know what to do with them. So they put themselves on stage as this sort of almost avatar-like version of who they really were. And unfortunately, the ending of this person's story is, they were charged with fraud, and like they're not really a hermaphrodite and all that sort of thing. And I think were unfairly jailed in but all of that research on the individuals that would wind up inspiring the members of the menagerie, like it was not hard to sort of piece together the why behind their involvement in the menagerie. People were escaping famine. People were other the way they look. Something that I learned as I was researching little people for the book was that Tom Thumb, who was a very famous little person in sideshow history, had like multiple mistresses, was very, very like had gobs of money, was very, very famous, and just like his life was made possible by exploiting his visible deformities. And so I tried to sort of like find a middle ground between all of them where I almost had to put on my my graphic novel hat. Because when you're doing graphic novel, all of your characters must be visually very like differentiated from one another, right? Like if you put them up in a lineup together, what you have are different body types and heights and shapes and whatever, and so you have a visual for their personality differences and things like that. So I tried to sort of do that, but in a prose like format, which was, I think, helpful.
Yeah.
Because I could immediately visualize the motivations for the way certain people acted and stuff like that. And to your question about who sort of dominated my mind,
I need to know.
Yeah. So Matthias lived in my head rent free all the time. Like he
lives in mine too.
Yeah.
Honestly.
And like he's loosely based off of someone that I actually know who it has more than once been like a mentor through some of the tough times, and so like it just felt very natural to me that he should be the sort of like being part of the entire company. And of course Vera, like, do I have a crush? Possibly. I mean, there's so many aspects of this book that were just so self-serving, and I was like crushing on Vera as I was writing them.
I'm just saying, if you're not going to do it, who is? So
yeah,
it was an enjoyable ride. I want to make sure that I leave for audience questions, even though y'all, I have at least 6 more questions.
We can do a rapid.
This is me being kind. Enjoy while you can. No, but yes, let's do some audience questions. And online again, I know it was mentioned earlier, if you have questions, please pop them in there. We love answering everything.
Yes, we don't have any questions online yet, but we can take in-person questions if we've got any. And I can also start us off because I have a question.
We can do. I have a question. Is Leah's story okay? Oh, I'm so glad. Okay, so how many of you have listened to the audiobook? Okay, so Lee is the voice of Benny. What? Okay, I brought something for you.
Oh,
okay. My best not to get wiggly here. Okay, so when Recorded Books said that they were going to turn my book into an audiobook, they had like provided like a few like sample audio. I was like, I don't know. Obviously whoever voices Benny should be comfortable speaking Spanish, but there needs to be some kind of like the combination of kindness and grit is something that I'm missing with all these people. So I went on a hunt and found Lee's website that had like all of like this incredible vast library of accents and like voices, and I was like, oh my god, this is about his real life of any Caldera that I could find, and the performance that you deliver is just, it blows us all away. And so I brought a little something.
I do hope no one here big scaling, because that was the part that I was like, oh, that's what I got to be.
So So, of course, for those who have not yet read the novel, Rio comes up with a sort of pet name for Benny because he hangs around so much. He is sort of attached. And it is Barnacle. And so I got this hat made, and it says Barnacle on the front, but it also says Benigno Caldera.
Oh my God.
Oh my God. My day is made.
Yeah.
That is I don't think that's ever happened before. Would you like to read from the book?
Nice.
I've been put you on the top.
Yeah.
Oh my God. Oh.
Yes.
Do you have a section in mind? Oh my gosh. Here, wait, where's the you know the copy?
Oh, I think she has it back.
Okay, somebody.
I'm gonna gosh.
Yeah, he gets to decide.
I have to decide. Right.
Okay.
All right. Y'all told me.
Where's the part where Benny
Wait, there you
It's
It's not too spoilery, and that's
not too spoiler, right? Everyone at home, you've read it, right? Okay.
Oh, she's the Kindle version. You're searching.
Yes.
Barnacle. What would be
Or read.
No, it's many names.
Rio.
So the first one says
that? Oh, Rio.
Amazing.
It's because you signed your name.
Yes.
Look at Julian.
Oh my God.
So where should I? Where do you think I should begin?
So difficult. Let me see. Right there. Let me see. Yes, that's.
Rio speaking to good face. One of the first times that they really
Yeah.
talked. Before I could think of a better conversation started, he asked, "What are you?" My mouth everything's been closed. I'm a guy. I mean, man. Is that all? And blacksmith. He studied me like I was the head smelter here. You said my mother spoke to your mind, but you looked me over with bored disdain. A blacksmith. What about you? Remembering Madame Navia's mutterings about imprisoning deities, I asked, "You're not like a god, are you?" His expression went frigid. A god who could not save himself or his kin from death and captivity? Right. Sorry. I cleared my throat. You should probably eat the bacalao Morgan's been giving you, you know? Morgan. He repeated the name, like the name tasted bitter on his tongue. Is that the trench-dwelling shark who circles this cage all day? If I weren't a heartbeat away from shaking out of my skin, I might have laughed. Yeah, that's him. His jaw tightened. My kind are not beholden to humanity. Be that as it may, I said, aiming for diplomacy. If we want to keep this up, I drew a line in the air between us. You're going to have to eat what he gives you, too. He didn't roll his eyes so much as held back a glower. I will eat it, but not because the shark wishes it. With a shudder, he added, "It tastes of the Dead Sea." This is longer than I expected.
Oh no,
It's cured. I'll get him to soak it in water. It's so much better that way. Not so salty or chewy or my audience was looking at me like I could use a good soaking myself. I'm Benny, by the way. That's short for Benigno. Benigno, he repeated. Your name means kind. I grinned. Yeah, that's right. An eyebrow, the one with the gash carved into it, arched at me. We shall see. What's yours then? The corners of his eyes pinched. Humans cannot say it. I held in a scoff. If Igor's voice could come out of my mouth, this merman's name couldn't be so hard. Try me, I said. No. Should call you merman then? No. I mean, you don't want me to pick a name for you. We blinked at each other. Wait, you want me to pick a name for you? He closed his eyes like I was riding the farthest edge of his patience. If you must call me by a name, then you will choose it, he said. To give you my name is to give you the last of myself, and humanity has taken enough from me. My name is my own. You may not have it. I found I couldn't argue. The name I'd given everyone I had met in America wasn't my real name either, but rather a loaned out version that matched everything they thought I was. Simple and easy to wrap their sharp tongues around. The only place I existed as Benigno was in my memories. Well, I don't want to give you one that doesn't fit. Couldn't you tell me something about yourself? His eyebrows lowered. All right. Forget I asked. Let me think. I sat up on the lattice and let myself look at him, reining in my urge to ogle. I'd never seen features like his. Like he had evolved to blend perfectly into Atlantic waters with variegated blue-green skin and hair that fell in waves around his athletic shoulders like copper-colored tributaries. Tributaries that made me think of the river we pulled him from. Then that made me think of El Rio Humacao. Wasn't sure the path that connected the merman to the swollen rushing current that stole my memories during the hurricane. But it produced a name nonetheless. How about Rio? Rio. He mimicked my rolled R like a native Boricua. Why that name? A river can be both devastating and beautiful. Shrugged. It suits you. He tipped his head to the side, seeming to carefully assess my selection. All right, boy named Kind, he murmured. You may call me Rio. Without taking a breath, he dipped back under the water, his tail cresting the surface before slipping noiselessly away.
Thank you so much.
Tree. It is available on my Libby. It is on now. Okay, so a couple things. I don't move on to audio. Oh, thank you. So when I was trying to, I basically called up my friend Natalie Naldis, who is another audiobook narrator, and I was like, Natalie, you gotta, like, is it weird for an author to get a gift for an audiobook narrator? And she was like, that's happened to me before. I did get a spa like gift basket once. Can I get? I can't get a spa gift. I'm like, but I'm glad to know it isn't weird because, like, I just it felt like kismet to find your reels and to hear you speak because, good God, like there's simply no one else in the world who could literally breathe life into Benny Caldera. Just so grateful. That's like the coolest thing that's happened.
Yeah, I can confirm that's like the coolest thing. Oh, that was so special. Who wants to top that?
Glad I got all my questions.
Oh, I also have a question. We actually also have a question online, and it's a really good one. So I'm gonna do this one instead. What was your favorite drawing to do for the book?
Oh.
The very first thing I drew actually is a test for the illustrations was Benny carrying Rio Taxi. Because as a few people close to me know, so the book is dedicated to Sonny and Roger, and Sonny was my cousin who passed of AIDS. And there were moments I observed between him and Roger that looked very much like that illustration. So that one is very special to me because I was like, let me do this one first because this one needs to be perfect.
Ask a follow-up because my question is about the art too. Could you talk a little bit about the colors of Rio?
Yes. Okay. So, like every character design I've ever had to do, I tried to be very intentional with the colors and the descriptions of Rio. And in the beginning of the book, and in the literal end paper, the front end paper, you see Benny at the pier staring out over the water at the Statue of Liberty. And so I began with that this being should be a visual representation of what Benny has been longing for and just sort of constantly being lured to the water for. And so from there, I had to get more practical. I'm like, okay, so we have these sea greens and, obviously the copper tones and whatnot. But what is the indigenous biology of these waters like? And so from there, I was like, okay, I've got the red kelp for his hair. And, I brought all of his skin tones down to be much darker because if mer people are in the East River, something's got to be keeping them a secret. Now they're not a secret at all. Just go to the mermaid parade every June, and they're all and so the silvers and the blue greens and stuff like that. I was also, again, just being self-indulgent because as I was writing this, constantly drawing concept art as if I were eventually going to be producing this as some kind of graphic novel or even as a film. So, yeah, that's how that came together.
Will it be a fun?
Yeah, that's great.
I do have an entertainment agent that is, and I feel slightly daunted about the fact that this is online, but I'll get some silence extends to the internet. But so they are fishing in animation waters. But like anything that is it could take years. There's no guarantee about anything. Even if it gets optioned, you still need the magic mix of all these different people involved. But I do know that they are trying to tap Lin-Manuel Miranda's shoulder.
Like the Little Mermaid.
We are actually 2 degrees removed from one another because my close friend Sean Taylor Corbett was in the original cast of In the Heights with Lin-Manuel. So I want to call him Sean. I know you just recently saw Lin, and he's doing a show called Distant Thunder, which is amazing, and it's about indigenous Native American tribes, and it's incredible. And so they got together there, and I was like, oh man, Sean, help a brother out.
You kind of segued into my question anyway, because I wanted to know if there was a soundtrack, what would be on it?
Oh gosh. All right. So there is a Spotify playlist.
Of course.
You can find it. It's on my Instagram and on my Tumblr. I think I put it there too. But oh gosh, there's so many like ocean and sort of siren tracks on there. If I were to pick one song that epitomizes When the Tides Held the Moon, though, there is a bolero on that playlist called Sonrisa del Ángel, which means the smile of the angel. And the entire thing, first of all, it'll show you what a bolero from that time would sound like, but also the lyrics to this song are so like achingly romantic. It like at some point the lyrics translate to, I'm jealous of the water for serving as a mirror because it can hold your face, like stuff like that. Find it. It's by Tres Condes is the name of the band, and I think they are actually a Puerto Rican trio. So there's a question.
Do we have any more questions in the audience?
Yeah.
I wanted to ask about the title of it because when I read that part, that was the part that made me cry harder than like any of the rest of the book.
Oh my gosh.
Like, is to say a lot because I cried a lot. But I want to know, did you know the title of Beyond, or when you wrote that part, did you know, oh, that's going to be the title?
So I actually am awful with titles.
Thank you.
So I had written this whole thing, and as I am very lucky to be married to an English teacher who has a very poetic soul himself. And I was like, gosh, what am I going to call this? And he's like, I think you should name it after my favorite scene and call it When the Tides Held the Moon. And I was like, oh my God. That's why I'm married. Yeah, I think I say in the acknowledgements, like the title is beautiful because Mike came up with it. Oh, do you have a question? I think for him. Oh. I know he's babysitting my kids right now. I'm so sad that he couldn't be here. Any other questions?
Yeah, so now, are you able to talk at all about upcoming projects outside of your graphic novel?
Sure.
Yes. You mentioned that you're going to have more in this. Can you share any more about the setting? Are we going to stay in Coney Island, or are we going to expand beyond to somewhere else? Okay, if you can share that.
Yeah. So it's probably not going to get me in trouble to say that. I know this is a very different situation for me, having it like live streamed, because now my brain's anyway. So When the Tides Held the Moon is one of a series of standalones based on different elements. So this is the water book, and the next book is air. And so we are following a female aviator and her fallen wind master. And that book is going to be set in New York. And just based off of the historical research that I've done so far, I do see a lot of it happening on Long Island. Because, like, even though I grew up across the boroughs, like, I was, like, home base was Valley Stream. And I did not know until I started researching this book that my hometown was an airfield visited by Charles Lindbergh and Amelia Earhart and all of these, like, big name aviators. And in particular, the 99s, which is a group of women aviatrixes, was founded in the 1919 in Valley Stream. And so I was like, there's my sign. So I am slowly going down the historical rabbit hole, finding out about aviation history in New York and in Puerto Rico, and it's gonna be fun. But yeah, so and then Earth and Fire later. Thank you for asking.
Any more questions? Okay, then we're gonna go ahead and close out our event. Everyone, please give a warm thank you. Seriously, thank you. This was like one of the most special events. That was, it was so cool. Yeah, I loved it. And for everyone online who caught a little taste of When the Tides Hold the Moon and who don't own your own copy already, you can buy one by clicking on that teal button right below the screen. You can, right where Julian's pointing. Buying your copy from Charis allows us to keep putting on incredible events like this, and obviously y'all want more of this. So everyone in person, you can purchase a copy if you haven't already from Kira up front. And we're going to ask Venessa and Julian to please stay where they're seated, and you have Sharpies right next to you so everyone can make a little signing line next to you. We're going to close out. Thank you, everyone, one more time.